Hello, this video is titled Capitalism Fails to Support People. It just does. I mean, I admit I make notes because sometimes these videos I make, I've said it on before, the volume doesn't work. And I think I don't want it to be worse the second time than the first time, so I just get it equal. Anyway, enough of that. I've gone beyond identity vibe because like a long time ago, but it's almost, I think it's completely gone now. I hope so, because I understand intellectually that it's wrong to be like that in politics because it's just blue team, red team. You're just choosing who to support, like a football team. Okay, in football, some people choose the local team. Some people come back to me on that one, but a lot of people don't. They just pick, I love this one, and then they stick with that for life. I'm from the northeast. I remember fans like Tottenham and things, you know, from Red Carnegie Middlesbrough. And some people are like that, and others are like that. But a lot of people are like that, but clever with it in politics because they don't admit it, which makes a difference. Whereas in football, at least admit it. At least admit, oh, I just chose my uncle, stuff like that. I was blah blah blah. Right, it just took me to a match one day and I stuck with it. So beyond identity vibe, identity politics so often is something the right wing correctly accuse the system left of. However, how hypocritical. You read a political textbook, ideology textbook, you see that identity politics is central to the system, right? So it's really strange. It really is strange. I just think it's the usual game. You shouldn't take it at CUC if you just ignore it. But yeah, you know that the identity vibe's gone quite a lot when you dissociate less. I'm using the word dissociation like Jung used it, when the ego feels attacked and you feel a bit confused, disorientated, you have to restore your ego, blah blah. That still would still happen to me if accused of something personally. So so therefore I can think like, oh yeah, it's not that doesn't happen. It stings not much there in politics now because I've worked out what I think is factually right and this is reality. That's when I've gone out seeing through the propaganda matrix. I suppose the further you went back in my videos, the more there will be still some of that dissociation there, but more recent ones, less. But you won't be able to tell. But yeah, I think that I think the penny's dropped completely. I hope so. Yeah, so supporting political identity replaces reality. It replaces facts. It's just like they just do. You know what I mean? It's just got no rhyme or reason to it. There's no principle, for example. There's no substance for that. None. There's just nothing. It's just the propaganda matrix doing their thinking for them. And right, the fact is that capitalism, so dealing with the facts now, the reality, not the vibe, not the identity, just dealing with it as it is. Capitalism does not support people. It couldn't support millions of people who couldn't afford to learn to read and write in the Victorian era. The capitalists couldn't or wouldn't pay their Victorian workers enough to cover the costs of being able to learn to read and write. So they were just like, I've wasted lives instead. It's true. You have to say it. They just lived a wasted life instead. And that's the end of it. That's the end of that conversation, basically, unless you wanted to do a sociological study of what living a wasted life was like. Not very good, I imagine. Difficult. Capitalism failed to cover the cost of health costs. Before I get on the health, I'll just mention that it also fails to cover educating higher education. I mean, obviously at first it's thought, well, we want Bob sending the working class and women there because they're too thick anyway. It's charming. But when that was the excuse, capitalism's excuse, you always have excuses. And of course, if capitalists can't afford, right, to pay people wages to do this, it just shows the flaw of the entire system, doesn't it? But of course, capitalism does create enough overall. If the distribution is not there, it creates vast wealth, vast incomes at the top. And it just needs to be distributed to make it an economic democracy. But it won't. So we, for the education, carry on with the education, higher education, we had to introduce things like grants or progressive loans where you don't pay anything back till you earn like 20,000 or whatever, that sort of thing. And that's to, and again, so this money's coming from capitalism. You know what I mean? It's like the money is there. It does create the wealth. It can afford it. It always proves it. It's just they don't want to. So they make excuses that they can't afford it. In truth, the people who can't afford to live like this are the people who can't afford the needs of health and education and money to live, to pay for housing, to pay for rent, etc. So a minute ago I was getting on healthcare. Well, so we brought in universal healthcare because people couldn't afford healthcare. Another thing that capitalism was, the propaganda matrix was saying, oh, it's commie, we can't do that, Marxists and all this thing. Just use the buzzwords, throw them out there, that'll do. You don't want to be Russia. It's all ridiculous. You still get that in America today on healthcare. You see how the mounting failures of capitalism's inability to support people add up. So we're constantly having to put plasters over it. So capitalist wages fail to cover the cost of people's rents. So we brought in housing benefit. Capitalism's wages fail to cover the costs of basic necessities. So we brought in the likes of income support and now universal credit, which is not universal. It's misnamed. And what that's for, he's always had a bit of a suspicion, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they're called. The fact is that everywhere you look, capitalism's failed. It fails and it fails and it fails on everything you look at. It is a system that constantly needs propping up so that people can merely survive. Now people do not have enough money due to the combination of AI revolution taking jobs and the cost of living crisis. And yet capitalism does create vast wealth. It's just that it's concentrated. So just like power is concentrated, with the news media among a few, so too is wealth. If people can see through the propaganda to the facts and the reality, then we can move from this immoral system towards becoming an economic democracy. It means seeing through the propaganda matrix, though. The propaganda matrix exists to maintain the status quo or even to strengthen it back to a bit more like it was when it was more unequal. Get rid of a few of our achievements that took so long to get. So now capitalism's failing to cover the rent, it's failing to. I mean, so let's think about this, right? Of course, like some people can afford from the wages they get. You know what I mean? So you say, some people could maybe afford to pay the rent, to cover the food, it even covers a nice holiday, but it wouldn't cover education, it wouldn't cover health as well. So when I talk about going back, some on the right would like to go back to make it even harder for people, some of the achievements that we have gained, then they're just dragging more people into that. And now, of course, some on the other way around, more people are unable than ever before to pay the rent. So they might pay the rent, and they've got the house, they've got the education covered, they've got the health covered, but having paid the rent, now they can't afford to keep the house warm in winter, or they struggle like mad to buy food, so they're having to like look for all the cheapest stuff possible, things like that. And that's getting more like that. That's what the cost of living crisis is. It's getting more like that, not less like that. So those people who, I don't know, this trust type who would want to make it even harder for us, that is so immoral. I saw, there's this guy I've just come across on Twitter, goes by the name Tiberus, Tibeus, at EcoMarxy. Yeah, he's very good. So I'm just going to read some of his tweets because it's good to come across someone like that. Someone you think, oh, he really knows the stuff. You know what I mean? He's like, I get from the impression I get from him is that he's well beyond identity vibe. Probably hasn't suffered from that for, I don't know, years. I mean, I'm not going to say it because I'm just making assumptions. But anyway, I'll just read some of his tweets. The illusion of democracy is worse than the knowledge of non-democracy. Under the illusion of democracy, the establishment can manufacture consent extremely easily. Everything is more easily scrutinised. That was the 5th of September 2023 one. Here's another one. Notes are over there, I'm just reading. You cannot politically represent the oppressors, the rich and powerful, and the oppressed, the working class. The political class, therefore, only represent one, the rich and powerful. That was paraphrased by me, that one, and I put equals cartel at the end between the political class and the super rich. That was 27 August 2023. I just want to move away from Tiberus for a minute. I might come back to him, but I like this tweet from Dr. Thomas Douglas, PhD in Sociology, University of Chicago. The battery. Yes, gone low. Right. Right, so this tweet, I'll say that again, from Thomas Douglas, PhD in Sociology, University of Chicago. Once more, let me remind you what fascism is. I need not wear a brown shirt or a green shirt. Fascism begins the moment a ruling class, fearing the people may use their political democracy to gain economic democracy, begins to destroy the political democracy in order to retain its power of exploitation and social special privileges. So it's saying, you know, when I go on about the propaganda matrix and seeing through it, well, what Thomas Douglas, sociology professor, saying that is that at a point when people start to see through that, then the elites start thinking, well, we're going to have to hang on to this somehow. So they start to act fascist, so that appeals to some people, and it can maintain holding enough people together without being too socialist, and that so that the status quo ultimately is preserved in a very vile way. And I have thought that myself a lot. I tend to say that the state gets the military out if propaganda matrix collapses, and I also say that when capitalism starts to collapse completely, there's a risk to the ruling class of socialism getting a foothold and winning, and there's also a risk of fascism winning. Both them two things have a better chance, because obviously if people are desperate and they need money, and also though when people are desperate they start scapegoating. See, there's the two things. Here's a quote from Michael McAllister. He's a Californian techie type. I admit I haven't seen much of him, but I like this quote, this tweet. Capitalism is a government-sanctioned eugenics program. Well, exactly. If you just, it's always needing propping up so that people aren't dying off. It's true. It's correct. I want to get on to universal basic income and capitalism now, because you say, oh, right, someone could say, oh, right, I've seen you like the idea of universal basic income. How does that relate to what you're saying in this video? It's a lovely, good question. I think that capitalism and UBI, well, capitalism always wants to be propped up. And in this sort of, how can I put it, position or stage of development we're in now, whatever, UBI is naturally it's going to become more and more popular because cost of living crisis, AI revolution, the fact that it's on the table now, people know about it more. There's a chance that that UBI would be used in the same way as other things have been used to prop capitalism up as a plaster. That's low-level UBI. High-level UBI would be a guaranteed citizen's income, which would rebalance the economy so that the individual worker has about as similar power to the employer, because the employee would be able to the worker would be able to choose to just leave this job if that employer was exploiting. Like, for example, bullying is the obvious one. But it could be just that they think the employer is overworking or whatever, or underpaying. It doesn't have to be that the employer is being a very nasty twat, and I'm not blatantly obvious way. People have the right to live how they want to live. So if it's just a bit unfair, that's enough. He might not think badly of the boss. He might not think, you're being a bit unfair, but not evil or anything. I just don't want the unfairness at all. So I'm off to do something I like you are. Simple as that. I mean, it's just like, it's fair that I put it that way, because that would cover a heck of a lot of people. They might just be overworked. And if you're overworked, underpaid, and the employer's maybe struggling with himself, well, it's still not going to just stay on for the hell of it. So, I think it's a rebalancing thing. It can really, it hits capitalism. It helps the poor immensely. They're liberated. But it hits capitalism in the terms of its concentration of wealth. We've got to spread this. We've got to spread the income so that we're looking after our people, looking after ourselves, rather than just constantly looking after just a tiny few and like acting like that's okay. We'll give you a plaster. You're satisfied? No, we're not. We know why this goes on. We know that it's for status quo, for status, wealth, power. There's a propaganda matrix is also propping it up. It's propped up with plasters and propaganda. Terrific. I'm just looking back on Twitter at Tiberius. He's got a brilliant, or Eco-Marxy, he's got a brilliant thread of there's one he did on that I've seen that he's put on UBI. He'll have done more, for sure. But I've only just come across him a few days ago. Feels like a few. The tab is running slow. So you can see the point of my video so far anyway. Capitalism's shit and it needs propping up all the time by plasters, which are there to buy the people off. The risk with UBI is that it could be low level, so it's another plaster. I mean, it's better than nothing, but it's still propping the system up. If you get a citizen's guaranteed income UBI, then it does more than that, because we need to really make any capitalism balance so the workers have just as much power as the capitalists have, and the market should just be a market of non-essentials, just a little bit of it. Everything else should be towards the people. Now, we could start off with a plaster low level propping up capitalism UBI to prevent, so we don't just get mass inflation, but eventually we're restructuring so that we get a proper real level UBI as high as possible without causing inflation, as Stephen Richmond puts it. Very smart. They're them who should maybe be thinking of defecting by now. Yeah, Tiberius tweets, the right killed class politics. I believe the only way to get UBI, affordable housing, etc. are to revive class politics. Otherwise, people identify instead with a capitalist individualist bullshit the media sells them. That's the propaganda matrix. That is destroying the planet. How else do we unite people? Correct. Ah, yeah. I like this next tweet. That Tiberius posts, because I didn't just automatically agree with it. Well, I agreed with it, but I realised that he'd taught me something, because I'd thought about a new left party, but he says there's nothing stopping you supporting small leftist parties while being involved in direct action. But the point here is that the people via direct action must pave the way for the party, not the other way around. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, I think he's correct. That was a tweet from 9th of June 2022. Now that's my border collie's first birthday, and she was 1. Where is she? Yeah, she's just over 2 now. Yeah, right. So that's the video. I think I've said everything I want to say. I mean, Britain's an oligarchy. It's a scam. It's billionaires own the politicians, billionaires own the news media, thus try to own the people. But see through that, return the class stuff without having that vibe identity stuff. We're doing this because it's real, not for supporting a football team. Yeah, if you can do that, support a football team for that stuff. I mean, you have to remember the propaganda matrix tries to make it like that, tries to make you, more vibey than real. It's a complete scam. The system left and the system right go on about things that will never substantially change power dynamics in society. So therefore, it'll never substantially change anything. They're constantly trying to strive for the status quo with a heck of a lot of words. I'm sure about that, but they're still striving for the status quo. That is propaganda, power, and control. The capitalist system that exists outside of the politicians, that the politicians have to unite with and prop it all up, and it's all like a cartel. Well, it's Britain's biggest scam, and I think that universal basic income, high level, and free housing are two massive things that can finally destroy this scam. But we also need to spread power completely. We have some kind of socialist constitution, because that the people would want to preserve it. We wouldn't have a propaganda matrix. We wouldn't need one. Propaganda matrix is required, just like the plasters are required to prop all this up. Without it, they can't. The capitalism, state superstructure, propaganda matrix would just collapse. But we definitely need to distribute power, because otherwise, capitalist system can just come about again. It leaves them with a chance and opportunity to come back. Once we destroy this horrendously vile Harold Shipman system, we need to make sure it can never return. End of video.